Hi, my people. Welcome back to the Creative Weirdo Podcast. I'm Lizzie. I'm your host here. And today we're going to get into it, okay? I'm hoping by the end of this episode, y'all are reaching a meditative state with me because we're going to talk about fear, truth, thoughts, emotions, all the things, okay? We're going to talk about all those today. And stay tuned because I have a new little segment that I want to add in all these episodes. Let's just open ourselves up to some newness as we get into today's episode. So, in order to talk about the things that I want to today, I feel like it's only necessary to kind of bring up where these topics kind of manifested from me in terms of where I'm at right now in my life. And I really think that I'm at this point right now where I've convinced myself that fear does not drive my life. Like I am in the driver's seat of my life. And, I tell myself that because I've done all of the scary things that were once scary enough to not go through with my passions at all, right? And I promise all this stuff is going to relate, even though I'm just talking about myself right now. But I started this podcast 2 years ago and I've had a lot of changes, a lot of revamp, all that kind of stuff in the process. But I've done all the scary things that were once a big enough obstacle for me to continuously question my ability to uphold the task of, putting myself out there and having my thoughts be heard by whoever wants to hear them in the world. That's scary enough as it is, but I've done all the things, I've made the Instagram, I've made it public, I've posted it on my story, I've made it apparent to people in my life that I no longer speak to or that I no longer want to know anything about my life, So I've done all the scary things, but I'm at this point where I'm starting to realize that the fear is still lingering. And it's been making me kind of frustrated with myself because I'm like, what am I so afraid of? Genuinely, what am I so afraid of that I've gotten to the point where I feel like I've put myself in the position of going forth with everything and really just putting one foot in front of the other. And, every single time that I feel on my heart that this is my next step that I need to take, no matter how hard it is, I follow that. I do. And the issue sometimes that we run into is that we'll follow those little incentives to do the next thing that we feel is right, even though our mind is so afraid of it and it's the last thing that we want to do, but it's what we know we have to do. But when we follow that and we let the fear be the messenger, and not only the messenger, but we let the fear be the thing that's driving the action. What that does is it lets the fear be the vibration and the frequency of the energy that we are operating from now. So now you're actually doing the scary thing, but you're not realizing that you're operating from fear while you're doing it. Right? So you're not feeling the gratification and the effects of what it does to your psyche and your soul when you live out this task that felt so big and consuming at once, because now you're going through the pain of, well, I did this thing and it's not bringing me what I thought it was going to. And that brings up the idea of us having expectations behind things and things not meeting our expectations and then putting all of our worth and our eggs in one basket and constantly feeling like we're at the bottom of the wave rather than kind of surfing on top of it. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of speaking in tongues right now, so we'll get into it. But dabbling with the things that I am in my own personal life and in my own soul journey, whatever you want to call it, I keep asking myself what I'm so afraid of. And what I keep coming back to is the fact that I'm just afraid of my own potential. I've gotten to this point where I've done the work, okay? If you're someone who's listening to this and you have dug up all of the shadow parts of you and you've done the journaling, you've done the meditation, you've gone to therapy, you've done everything that you possibly can that everyone has always told you to do or that you've always heard, and you've seen improvements and maybe you even like the person that you are right now, but you still feel like there's this lingering thing that keeps following you that you have to consciously be aware of at like every single waking moment, it feels, in order to feel a sense of freedom from it, then I really do think that this episode is one that you want to stick around for, because I mean, obviously I'm just projecting here, because what else can I do but talk about my own experiences and alchemize my own suffering and pain and emotions and all those things in order to give you something of substance. But I really would argue that most people are afraid of their own potential. Whether they know it or not, I would argue that, because if we weren't also afraid of our own potential, then I know it's a lot harder than it sounds, but wouldn't we all be where we ultimately wanted to be in life to some regard, or at least on the path to doing so? I don't know, maybe I'm getting like too philosophical for my own good right now, because I'm kind of just ambiguously putting all of this out there, but I don't know. I just feel like we can be the root of our own suffering in more ways than one. And I don't love to say that directly on this podcast, because I feel like that invalidates a lot of people's pain for the suffering that they've gone through in their life. And I hope you know that every time I'm bringing something up like that, I'm not discrediting the things that you've ever been through, right? Like, obviously, a lot of people have been through shitty things. We've all been through shitty things, some worse than others, but I mean, who are we to kind of make a hierarchy of suffering, you know? But I really do think that a lot of things in life come down to the fact that they weren't your fault, but they are your responsibility, you know? Especially as an adult now, you might not feel like you have the tools to quote unquote heal from this thing. You might not feel like you have enough experience even to withhold the kind of pain that you're going through. But your experience, your tools, your credibility to be able to not only withstand this, but actually get past it and use it as a way to perpetuate your own soul and level up in life, is the fact that you are going through these things and that you've been through these things. You know, nothing is a coincidence. You've gone through these things on purpose, and not because you deserved to go through suffering, but because it's actually there for you in a really twisted and dark way, and in a way that none of us really know the answers for except for God. But you know, you've been through these dark periods of your life in order to feel how good the light feels and to stay in the light parts. You know, we're not meant to always be suffering, but in the grand scheme of life, when you look back at all the things that you've been through, I don't know if it's just me saying this, but I do feel like it's a lot easier for us sometimes to dwell in the bad parts. And when we're dwelling in the bad parts, what we're doing unconsciously is attaching our worth and our sense of self to the bad things that have happened to us. So we're now, without even realizing it, we're judging the way that we have dealt with the bad things. And I'm using bad, but I really don't like putting things in boxes of good and bad, because it all just is at the end of the day. Truth just is. And we'll get to that. But you know, you unconsciously on some level are judging the way that you have dealt with all the shitty things that have happened to you. And you're also judging the fact that you're almost feeling bad for yourself in a way for going through those things, because you know that you're someone who deserved better in a sense. But just because bad things happen to you doesn't mean that you deserve them. It's just a test to see how you deal with them and where you're at in your life. And if you're finding yourself, you know, constantly in this spiral and this cycle of suffering, then it's trying to show you something. It's trying to illuminate some part of you that you might not even know is there right now. So that gets me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is time. You know, you often hear people say that time heals all wounds and that you just have to let time pass. Whatever iteration you've heard that, we've all heard people talk about time as this thing that heals and this thing that almost lets things pass through us in a way where we don't really have any control or have to put any effort to it at all. I think we all are aware that time is out of our control. And time is like the only thing that we accept being out of our control. Even if sometimes, you know, it's harder to accept that, I think we all know that at the end of the day, like that is the thing that is just going to keep going. And what is time really? You know, like it's just a concept if we want to go there. But I really do think that the notion of time healing all wounds is really just the thing that is perpetuating all of our suffering without even realizing it, because it doesn't. It doesn't. And if you've ever grieved anything or anyone in your life, you know that time doesn't actually heal those wounds. It still hurts, but you just become stronger. It becomes more tolerable because you learn to tolerate it. And that doesn't mean that time is the thing that is healing those things. Because what is time really? Like, we're looking at it as this thing that creates distance between us and the root of our suffering. But in reality, if you really look at it, say I'm using the example of grieving someone that you just lost. Even if that person passed away 5 years ago, it still hurts, right? But maybe emotionally you feel a little more numb to it nowadays, even if you still think about it, even if it still affects you. The truth of the matter is that that person is no longer physically in this realm, physically in our life anymore, right? That's the truth of the matter. And that has been the truth of the matter since the day that person passed away. Okay, so the concept of time here has no meaning, because we look back at it and we're like, oh, time heals all wounds, because we're looking at the fact that that person passed away 5 years ago, and now, we're not as emotionally unstable dealing with this situation. But that time has not created distance from the truth of the matter that this person has passed away. It has not created any distance, because the truth is still the truth. They're no longer here with us. So time does not heal all wounds. Presence, our attention to what is true and what is not, is what helps us create meaning, which I think is what helps us kind of find peace of mind in the hardships that we go through in life. And I know that that can be a really tough subject, so I'm sorry to use your grief as an example, but it's real, and it's something that I think a lot of us can relate to. So, I'm kind of over sugarcoating things or kind of beating around the bush to spare feelings, because that's not the point of life. Like, we're not meant to go about life to spare each other's feelings. We're meant to tell it like it is and fucking deal with the backlash of things if we have to. But this whole idea of like cancel culture and all those things, I feel like has made people who are in these speaking positions kind of filter themselves in a way, which is like almost doing the opposite of what they're meant to be doing. And even if it's like an influencer, even if it's someone who's like not in a position of like preaching to the choir, but they're just there to like show their life or whatever, I feel like we have created this cancel culture now where people can't actually freely talk about what they're going through because they're afraid that someone else is not in the phase of their life to be receptive to that. But that's not the fucking point. Like, that's just not the fucking point. I don't know, maybe I'm going in the wrong direction right now. But to be honest, guys, if I sound a little scattered right now, it's because I just put my diffuser on before this episode and I put some orange essential oils in it, and I'm feeling kind of loopy. Like, I don't know what it did to me, but I don't know. I'm here, but not here. I'm feeling weird. BRB, I'm gonna go put some glasses on because I feel like my focus keeps coming in and out. BRB. Okay, I'm back with glasses on that are comically too big for my face. But I'm locking in, okay? I'm locking in. I'm here. So I feel like that was just a really drawn out explanation of truth versus fear, okay? Like, when we want to talk about what truth just is. Like, you can't really define what truth is because it just is. Like, I don't even really like using the word reality when talking about truth, because reality is kind of skewed by our own thoughts and our own feelings, like our reality is created by those things, because your thoughts are things in your head that are constantly telling you a story, right? And your thoughts are not real, okay? On any level, your thoughts are not real. The situations that you've gone through as you've perceived them, sure, you can call that real. That's the reality that you perceived it, whatever. But your thoughts, your mind is not real, okay? The thoughts that are telling you to think a certain way, that you should feel a certain way, that you should do things a certain way, whatever it is, like, your thoughts are not real. And that's why meditation is so powerful. And I say this to my students a lot when I teach yoga. meditation pauses the story in your head enough for you to realize that your mind is always telling you a story. And that's what's so powerful about it. You know, you sit down in silence for 3 seconds and you realize that you're always thinking. You're always fucking thinking. Like, no shit, but you know what I mean. But the thing here is that your thoughts create emotions. So, like I said, your thoughts are not real, right? Your thoughts are just thoughts. And then the reason why we create meaning to those thoughts is because we manifest these feelings and these emotions in our body, which translate to our psyche through what we're thinking. You know, like you think that you're in a really bad phase of your life right now, and that's a thought that you have. And then you start to feel really anxious about the phase of life that you're in right now. And then going back to what I was saying in the beginning, the energy that you're operating from, the frequency that you're emitting to the world is this anxious energy that's translated from your thoughts. So it's not truthful. It's not true. That's not who you are. And that's why, you know, sometimes we get caught up in these spirals is because we're like, oh, but I'm feeling this way, so it must be true. Because then our reality starts to match what our thoughts are telling us because of the way that we are operating in the world, the frequency that we're putting out, which is why manifestation works. If you can manifest good things in your life, you can also manifest bad things. And good and bad is very subjective. You know, I don't like saying those things, but whatever. But manifestation is not as woo-woo as we make it seem sometimes, okay? It's literally just exactly what I'm talking about right now, okay? Can you tell I'm getting frustrated with myself in this episode today because I'm like, girl, you knew you're able to sit on this fucking mic and talk about this for an hour, then why the fuck haven't you done it? And like, I try to, okay? I try to. And me doing this is me, okay, this is not about me, but I'm in such a weird phase, guys. Like, see, me thinking and manifesting my reality. Okay, so can we all take a deep breath? Let's all take a deep breath right now. Lately, and by lately, I mean the past 3 years of my life, I've felt are these huge transition periods, okay? And maybe this is just what being in your 20s feels like. You always feel like the ground underneath you is moving faster than your external reality is showing, and it makes you feel kind of out of alignment all the time and like you're waiting to turn the corner at every single point in your life. And I've created countless amount of episodes on that, so go back and look at my old episodes if you really want to hear my thoughts about transition periods and all that stuff. But if you can resonate with the feeling of constantly feeling like you're in a transition period and waiting to turn the corner, then it comes down to us feeling like we're in a constant race with ourselves. And maybe it's not with ourselves. Maybe we feel like we're in a constant race with our peers and the people around us, or, you know, just society at best, or whatever it is. But in order to get out of the headspace of feeling like we're always at a race against ourselves, we have to realize that there is no race. There is no race. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here with our thoughts and manifesting and reality and all those things, is like, you're making meaning out of things that hold no inherent meaning behind themselves. Your thoughts hold no inherent meaning, okay? And that can get kind of shaky. That can get kind of shaky because, in a way, I'm not saying this is how it is, but in some way that none of us really can fully explain, you know, if you find yourself to be a spiritual person, then your thoughts are one of the ways that spirit, that God communicates through you and to you, is through your thoughts. But I think that when you're tapped into your spirituality and your sense of whatever prayer or meditation or talking to a higher power looks like to you, even if you're not able to explain the difference, you feel the difference between God speaking directly to you versus your mind telling you thoughts, your mind doing what it's programmed to do, which is think, okay? And that's the other thing. Like, I'm not demonizing our minds here when I'm talking about them. I'm literally just saying how it is. Like, your mind is operating correctly if it's constantly telling you a story. it's doing what it's supposed to do, okay? But that doesn't mean that we have to take it as Bible. We don't have to believe every single thought that's coming through our brain, which gets me to the topic of discernment, okay? One thing that we forget to realize is that we do have autonomy over our lives, and that means that we have autonomy over our thoughts. So every single time that a thought comes up in your life, you have the choice to believe that thought or to see it as what it is, which is just a passing thought, okay? Look at your thoughts as these clouds in the sky that just pop up whenever they want to. You have the ability to focus in on that thought and make it rain all over your life, or to let it just pass through the sky in a peaceful manner, okay? Like, we catastrophize things in our life that are not asking to be these big things. They're just coming through and passing by. And sometimes we really just have to separate ourselves from our thoughts to realize what we're focusing our energy on and what we're bringing our attention to, which is creating these issues in our life and perpetuating these spirals of suffering. So I want to talk a little bit more about transition periods because, for one, my ducks are not really in a row when it comes to how I'm thinking about transition periods because, you know, literally said to you guys, I feel like I'm constantly in a transition period in my life. And two, I'm never going to have one solid answer for any of the things that I'm talking on this podcast, okay? And that's the beauty of it, is that as I'm changing, my thoughts are changing, which means my reality's changing, which means my emotions are, like, everything's always changing. And, you know, I don't expect any of you to be one constant version of yourself. And I don't believe that you would expect me to be that either. Even though this day and age on the internet, we do expect people to be one version of themselves constantly. And we get mad at people when they change. And, you know, that's what I was kind of saying about cancel culture and all those things. But whatever. Besides the point. Speaking for myself here, I think the reason why I feel like I'm constantly in a transitional period in my life is because what I'm desiring is slightly changing, but I'm not bringing my attention to what I'm desiring. So I think the reason why I keep catching myself in these transition periods of my life that are honestly making me feel really unsettled, because when you feel like you're constantly transitioning, what you're feeling is that your ground is not steady, right? Like, you're constantly kind of looking for the next thing. So you're not really being present. And even when you are being present, you've unconsciously attached meaning to this phase of your life being the transition period. So even when you are being present, you're kind of grieving the fact that that present moment is going to pass because you're transitioning into something else, even if you know it's something better, you know? But I think when I take a step back and I start to just reflect a little bit about these phases of transition that I keep finding myself in or telling myself that I'm in, because also, what the fuck even is that? Like, life is a transition period. Like, you're always changing. So, of course, you're kind of always going to feel like the ground underneath you is constantly moving, even if your reality is staying the same. And when your reality is staying the same, like, your external life, your external world is staying the exact same, but you feel like emotionally or spiritually, the ground underneath you is moving, that makes you feel out of alignment. And that's why it creates this kind of suffering, because it's just creating anxiety in your life because of the thoughts you're producing because of it. I think I'm just saying the same things in like different formats, but hopefully it's helping us all kind of, I don't know, put things into words. I guess that's what I do here. I don't know. But the thing is, when you find yourself on this kind of precipice of something big, like you feel in your heart of hearts like you're about to turn the corner, but then you start to get anxious because like you don't know the timing. You don't know the timing, so you're like, okay, fuck, like what if I'm not ready? And you start to get all those thoughts that make you spiral. I think what this brings up is the fact that we're not constantly asking ourselves what it is that we're desiring. We're just kind of following the desire that was maybe placed on our heart 2 years ago even. And we're taking that as the thing that we need to be working towards. When in reality, maybe what we're asking of is to constantly be uncovering what it is that we're desiring. Because as your life changes, you change, which means that your desires also change, because when you're changing, the things that you're desiring are either becoming more aligned to you or less aligned to you. And either way, it's okay. That's completely fine. But I think it makes more sense for us to uncover the ways in which what we desire is changing, because then that reflects to us directly what in us has changed, versus us constantly being so obsessed with the timing of our life and when these things are going to come into fruition and when our external world is going to match our internal world, and we're going to feel this sense of unity and peace that we're ultimately all desiring on the basis of things, because all of our purpose, I say this in so many fucking episodes, I'm way past a broken record at this point. All of our purpose and our ultimate desire in life is to feel peace. Okay. Like we just want peace. That's what we want in our relationships, in the meaning that we find in life, in the way that we view ourselves, in everything in our world, externally, internally. We just want to feel peace. And in order to feel peace, you have to feel like you are aligned to everything that is currently happening in your life, which is where the idea of presence comes up, like I think presence just allows you to kind of accept things as they are in front of you right now, and accept that where you are right now, where your feet are right now, is the best possible place for you to be right now, even if you don't understand why. But going back to what I was saying about desire, you can only desire on the basis of what you know. Okay. And I know that sounds kind of ambiguous, but it can be hard for us to desire a life that we have not even dipped our toes into, that we have never even seen anyone that we know in our current reality live out of, because that's a foreign concept to us. Like we don't even know that that's possible. So in a way, our desires can only change if we do, if our life changes, if our current reality and what we're accepting as truth changes. And you might be thinking, okay, well, how the fuck do I just change my life? How the fuck do I just change my pattern of thoughts, or the way I'm thinking about the pattern of thoughts, or who I actually am, all those things? Like, number one, stop thinking about yourself as a project that needs to be fixed. And number two, in order to change the things in your life, you have to change the way you're thinking about them. Okay? Because it all starts from our thoughts. Our thoughts manifest to our emotions, and our emotions manifest into our frequency that we emit, which manifests our reality. So in order to change things in our life and to change the way that we're operating, we need to, number one, become clear with what we're focusing our attention on. And then once we realize what we're focusing our attention on, we need to shift gears and focus our attention on the thing that holds the meaning. So if you find yourself constantly focusing your attention on fear, and then obviously you feel like you're just operating from fear in every aspect of your life, maybe you are constantly feeling embarrassed in social situations or uncomfortable in social situations, even though you know yourself deeply and you've gotten to a point where you do love yourself and you have great support systems and you have people in your life that you love or whatever, or that don't make you feel that way, whatever it is. If you find yourself feeling like you're constantly in a transition period, if you feel like your internal worlds are not matching your external and that you're always about to turn that corner, then change the way you're thinking about those things. Then focus your attention on the ways in which you're operating differently than you used to. Okay? Because the thing about fear is that it's kind of an underlining emotion that we have kind of felt our entire lives in different ways. When we were kids, I think fear was less irrational, to be honest, because we didn't really know the repercussion of our actions as much. So we didn't think as deeply about fear. So it didn't consume us as much. Fear was more so this protection mechanism that we were wired to operate from when we felt unsafe, which is healthy. Like it is good to feel fear. Like fear is not completely meaningless. And I do think that everything that I'm talking about today kind of directs us to that question. Like, does fear even hold any meaning then if it just creates suffering? Because ultimately it's just a thought that we internalize. But if truth just is, then fear is the opposite side of that coin. Fear is completely unjustified because it is born from our thoughts, and our thoughts are not real. So fear is completely unjustified, and that's why it feels so disgusting in our bodies. Like that's the best way I can put it. Like it just feels gross in our bodies. We don't want to feel that way because it's not the truth. It's not the truth, and our body knows that. Our body knows that before our minds do. But like I was saying, it's this underlying emotion that we feel throughout the entirety of our lives in some way. So that makes us think, okay, well, this must hold meaning. I must be feeling fear because this thing is not meant for me. I must be feeling this fear because this is meant to be harder than what I thought. But that's not true. That's just a thought. Okay? I mean, we know that we go to what is most familiar to us, and if fear is most familiar to us, it's going to be the thing that we default on when we let our thoughts run our lives without taking ourselves out of our thoughts and realizing that we are separate from them. So, if we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Okay? Bottom line. Bottom line. And that's not coming from me, that's coming from some very smart human who has said that already, probably like Gandhi, I don't know. But, I hope this conversation, I know it was very scattered, but I think that the way that this conversation unfolded today was purposeful in the way that it was so scattered, because it kind of illuminates to all of you that, number one, we're all going through this together. Number two, my life is different than yours. My reality is different than yours. The things I'm going through right now are different than yours. So it's not necessarily a one size fit all, but at the same time, it kind of is. Everything I'm saying will apply to your life. Like, I know that as a matter of fact, because we're all human and we all have these minds, which are these thinking parts of ourselves. So the bouncing back and forth between ideas, let that be a representation of all the things I'm talking about today. Like, even if some of the things that I said didn't make sense, or there was a better way of saying them, or I just kept repeating it in a different way, that's exactly what our mind does. That's exactly what our thoughts do. And obviously, everything I'm kind of spewing to you today are just thoughts. It's just top of mind, whatever's coming through. But like I said in this episode, you use your discernment to take what I'm saying and to translate it into what you resonate with, and to see what resonates with you, what doesn't, to take the thoughts that I'm giving you and to build off of them and to figure out what they mean to you. And when you're going through any of these things, whether you're taking this episode and you're like, you know what, I'm going to start meditating every day. I'm going to start really separating myself from my thoughts and making this tangible. I think that's amazing and beautiful. And if you took that, then I'm so honored to be a part of that journey for you. But also remember, when you are uncovering all those thoughts and you're trying to separate yourself from your thoughts, you will go nowhere by demonizing parts of yourself, because ultimately your thoughts, they're not you, but they belong to you as much as you let them belong to you. So don't demonize your mind, okay? Don't demonize all those thoughts that are coming through. Just say thank you and politely put them to the side and choose to think something else if you want to think something else, or whatever it might be, okay? I'm just talking in cycles right now, but I want to get to our segment, okay? Because I'm just excited. I'm just excited. And I just think this is fun. So, drum roll, introducing a new segment here. The weird wrap up, okay? I don't know if this is going to be the name for it from here on out. So if you have any better names, please reach out to me. But in this segment, there really are no rules, and that's why it's really hard for me to come up with a name for it, because y'all know I don't like to put myself in one box, especially with creating. So the weird wrap up is going to be, at least this week, it's going to be me talking about some of my current obsessions, thoughts, things in life, current things I'm going through. I don't know. Like I said, there's really no rules, but this week I want to talk about my current obsessions. Number one. Okay, starting off with music, because that is always my weird obsession. Holly Humberston's new album, mic drop. Mic fucking drop, okay? And it's been around for a few months now, and I've been listening to it for a few months, but if you don't know Holly Humberston, go look her up. I wanted to mention her. Listen, I have a whole fucking list of artists I could give you right now that are my current obsessions, but I wanted to give you her because I feel like there's something in her music that is so empowering, especially as a woman. If you're listening to this, she has such a little pop girly, undertone to her music that makes you kind of just feel like a little girl again. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but her music is for girls in their 20s. Like, I don't know how else to put it, but I wanted to give you guys some song recs off of her latest album, Cruel World. So, one of my favorites is Blue Dream. Love that song. Another one I really like is White Noise. And then the third one I'd give you is Cruel World, which is the album title. So, I'm not going to like talk about it for 10 minutes because obviously I don't even expect all of you to have listened to it already, but go give it a listen. It's amazing. Anyways, and also the new Noah Khan album. I mean, come on. Like, I just keep finding myself going back to it. But I mean, if you know anything about Noah Khan, it's depressing as fuck. So, like, every single time I'm being pulled to go back to this album, I'm like, I need to take a deep breath and, like, actually prepare myself for it. It's actually that deep. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's actually that deep. So, yeah, if you've been through anything in your life, like, proceed with caution on that one. But The Great Divide, Noah Khan's new album, oh my God. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. Next current obsession is New York City. Holy fuck. I'm from Connecticut, so I grew up on the outskirts of the city. My entire fucking life, I've had such a love-hate relationship with New York because I'm an anxious girly, okay? I'm an anxious girly, and I don't like saying that because that's me, like, identifying with my anxiety. But I just resonate more with environments that bring out the softness in me, and New York is not that. New York does not bring out the softness in me, but as I get more acclimated to the environment of New York, it's kind of like it kind of helps me bring out the softness in me in a way because it illuminates to me all the parts of me that I'm in my masculine energy because like your masculine energy is like the work hard, play hard in you, and we all have masculine and feminine energy in us. And then your divine feminine energy is like the softness in you, the parts in you that like do what feels good to you, that give you peace of mind, that help you rejuvenate your energy, you know? And when I'm in New York, I just feel like I'm constantly in my masculine because I'm like afraid of being assaulted on the street and and like someone doing bad things to me. I don't know. But lately I'm just like, no, there's something empowering about the divine masculine. I'm like, isn't it so empowering when you feel like you're just so unsafe walking on the street that anything can happen at any moment? That's not what I'm trying to say here. I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but I've just been really loving New York. Like, there's something about walking on the street and seeing different faces every single day and no one knowing who you are. It's such a liberating feeling, but can also feel like you're the smallest little ant in the world sometimes, which I don't know, in a weird way makes me feel like liberated because you're like just another dot on the globe when you're in New York. Like you are literally just another person in New York. And no one knows if you live there or if you don't. I mean, you can kind of scope out the tourists, but no one knows if you live there, if you don't, if you work there, if you are a millionaire or you're dirt poor. Like no one knows anything about you. And it's just like kind of freeing. I don't know. So I don't really know why I needed to mention this to you guys, but maybe if someone's listening to this and you're going through the motions right now and you're deciding to move to New York and you are feeling this pull, this is your sign. Go to New York. Do it, baby. Do it. Do it. Okay? Stop letting your thoughts get in your head and be like, oh, but it's so expensive, but it's not worth it, but it's so hard to move in and it's this, that, and the other thing. Girl, you gonna find those troubles that you're thinking about in any fucking level of your life. No matter where you move, it's all gonna be a little bit difficult. Okay? So if you're feeling the pull, go to the big city, okay? Go live it up in the Big Apple, why don't you? Yeah, I don't know. There's just magic in that city. There really is. And like go figure, like there has to be magic in that city. There's so many fucking people living in it, you know? So you can't help but wonder like if there's that many people and that much collective like energy in one place. Obviously there's got to be something drawing those people to it. Like I don't know. I just love it. I just love it. Anyways, last little obsession of the moment. Adding scarves to outfits, okay? And I'm not talking like winter scarves that like keep you warm type shit. I'm talking about like Y2K silk scarves. Not necessarily silk, but like just as the example, like a silk Y2K scarf that like has patterns, like a really funky pattern on it and maybe like fringe at the bottom or something like that. And just like wrapping it around your neck or wrapping it around your waist, like through your belt loops, or wearing it as a top, or I don't know, what else can you do with a scarf? Putting it in your hair. I don't know. I just really, I'm really obsessed with the scarf lately. And it's really unfortunate because now we're in summer. So I don't really want a scarf around my neck right now. You know, I'm sweating. So it's kind of unfortunate, but still really loving them. Okay. That's all I have for you guys. That was a really fun, interesting, kind of weird, whimsical episode. So I hope that you enjoyed. And if you didn't, that's fine. That's fine with me because I did. So yeah, I really like this new little segment I'm adding at the end because it feels like my episode where I talked about weird ways to add whimsy to your life. Like, I get to give you guys tidbits to add some whimsy into your life while also giving you a glimpse of like just real things that I'm obsessed with right now, like just actual tangible things that you can go and listen to yourself or do yourself or whatever. And it's just fun. And it also just like gives you guys a little glimpse of who I am besides all the little philosophical kind of thoughts that I talk to you about every other week, you know? So that's all I got. Stay tuned for more episodes. Feel free to reach out to me at Creative Weirdo on Instagram. It'll be in the link below. And my main Instagram is Lizzie Arduino, which will also be in the description below. And yeah, talk to me, send me voice memos, send me messages over DM. I love to hear from you guys. You can leave a comment on Spotify now, which is pretty cool. And leave a rating or review on the podcast, please. I'm begging of you because I just want to hear from you guys and I want to see what you're thinking about the podcast, especially now that we've settled into this new era of Creative Weirdo and we've put Patience to Prosperity behind us. It will always be with us, but like in a different way. Okay. Yeah, I'm just sending you peace and love, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Mwah!